Right now, somewhere in your wallet, there's a small plastic card that has more power over your brain than your own common sense. You know the balance. You know the interest rate. You've told yourself a dozen times you'll stop using it. And yet somehow, the number keeps climbing anyway. It feels like a personal failure. But the real answer is far stranger than failure. Your brain was never built to handle a piece of plastic that lets you take something now and feel the cost later. It was built for a world where taking meant immediate physical loss, and the gap between those two worlds is exactly where credit card debt quietly grows. Think about the last time you paid for something with cash. You physically watch the bills leave your hand. There's a small flinch built into that moment, a tiny internal wince that economists actually have a name for. It's called the pain of paying. The researchers George Lowenstein and Drazen Prelek spent years studying exactly this discomfort, and what they found reshaped how economists think about spending. Their research showed that the pain of paying isn't just a metaphor. It's a real, measurable psychological cost that happens at the moment money leaves your hands. And that pain does something useful. It makes you hesitate. It makes you think twice. Now take that same purchase and pay with a credit card instead. The physical act barely changes. A tap, a swipe, a signature. But the researcher Drazen Prelek, working alongside Duncan Semester, ran an experiment that revealed something remarkable. In an auction where people bid on the exact same items, those told they'd pay by credit card were willing to bid significantly more than those told they'd pay with cash. Same product, same room, nearly double the willingness to spend. Why? Because the credit card had already done its job before the purchase even happened. It separated the moment of getting from the moment of paying. Your brain registered the reward instantly. The cost got pushed somewhere into the future, to a version of you that doesn't exist yet. This is where things get stranger. Your brain treats future costs and future rewards very differently from immediate ones. There's a well-documented pattern in behavioral economics called hyperbolic discounting, and it explains something that feels almost embarrassing to admit. Immediate rewards feel disproportionately huge. Future costs feel unrealistically small. Not because you're careless, because your brain evolved in an environment where later was uncertain enough that focusing on right now usually made more sense. For most of human history, delaying gratification carried real risk. Food spoiled, resources got stolen, opportunities disappeared. A brain that grabbed the immediate benefit and worried about tomorrow was often making the smarter bet. But a credit card statement doesn't work like a piece of fruit that spoils if you wait. It sits there patiently, accumulating interest, completely unaffected by how much your brain would rather not think about it. The very mechanism that once protected you now works against you because later always eventually becomes now, and the bill always arrives. Here's a twist that makes this even more complicated. The credit card industry didn't stumble onto this weakness by accident. Minimum payments are a masterclass in exploiting exactly this psychological gap. A large, frightening total balance is quietly replaced on your statement by a small, manageable-looking number. Pay just this much, it suggests, and everything will be fine. Your brain, always looking for the path of least immediate resistance, grabs the small number and moves on without fully processing that the small number barely touches the debt underneath it. The psychologist Walter Mischel spent decades studying delayed gratification, most famously through experiments involving children and a single marshmallow. Wait a little longer, the children were told, and you'll get 2 marshmallows instead of 1. Some children waited. Many didn't. What later research made clear is that the ability to wait wasn't simply a matter of willpower. It was heavily shaped by circumstances, environment, and whether waiting had ever actually paid off for that child in the past. Apply that same lesson to adults staring at a credit card statement. If your financial environment has ever taught you that waiting doesn't pay off, that emergencies always eat the extra money anyway, your brain has no strong reason to trust the promise of a better future, so it takes the marshmallow now. It swipes the card now. Not because of weak character, but because of a lesson learned honestly from real experience. There's another layer to this that rarely gets mentioned. The interest itself moves in a way your brain struggles to intuit correctly. Compound interest grows exponentially, not in a straight line, and human brains are notoriously bad at estimating exponential growth. A balance that looks manageable this month can double, then double again, following a curve that feels slow at first and then suddenly overwhelming. This isn't a flaw specific to people who carry debt. It's a documented general weakness in how human cognition handles anything that compounds quietly in the background. So the debt doesn't just grow because of spending, it grows because your brain is mathematically outmatched by the shape of the problem itself. Now here's where the modern mirror comes in, the part that connects all of this back to you. Every time your bank account balance recovers even slightly, there's a pull to treat that recovery as safety, to relax the vigilance, to swipe the card one more time for something that feels urgent right now. That pull isn't a personal defect. It's the same ancient wiring that once helped your ancestors take advantage of a good harvest before winter came again. The problem is that a credit card doesn't behave like a harvest. It behaves like a loan from your future self, one that charges interest for the privilege of borrowing from someone who never agreed to the terms. Understanding this doesn't erase the balance, but it does something almost as valuable. It removes a shame that keeps so many people silent and stuck, because shame narrows the very kind of clear thinking that debt repayment actually requires. When you stop treating this as a character flaw and start treating it as a predictable, well-documented pattern of human cognition meeting a system engineered around that cognition, the entire problem becomes something you can actually strategize against, instead of something you can only feel guilty about. Simple shifts can quietly break the pattern the industry is counting on. Reintroducing the pain of paying by physically tracking spending instead of letting it vanish into a tap restores some of that ancient hesitation. Automating extra payments above the minimum removes the decision from a brain that's built to choose the easier number in the moment. Treating future interest as a real, visible, growing object instead of an abstract number helps counteract the blind spot around exponential growth. None of this requires more willpower. It requires working with your brain's actual wiring instead of constantly fighting against it. That small plastic card in your wallet was never a measure of your discipline. It was a very old brain meeting, a very new invention, built by people who understood exactly how that old brain works. The bill in your hand isn't proof that you failed. It's proof that the game was designed around a version of you that evolution built for an entirely different world.